They call them the coyotes or the human smugglers. They were not feeding us. These are the people that are supposed to protect you. Yeah, they're doing these things to other people. Literally, it had just been 6 years that I had come to the States and I was a kid having a kid. Society, the world was telling me, no, you're not gonna make it. You went to jail, you're not gonna make it, right? Like everybody was telling me no, and I wanted to prove to myself more than anything, and then everybody else that yeah, I'm gonna make it. You can lose your house, you can lose your significant other, you can lose just about anything, except if you're alive, then you have so much to give and to get.
My guest today is an author, speaker, real estate investor, and personal development coach. His book series, You Can Overcome Anything, is an Amazon bestseller. His story is nothing short of amazing, and we're glad to have him here today. Please welcome my friend, Cesar Espino.
Hey Andrew, how are you, brother?
Welcome, Cesar.
Thank you. How's it going?
You know, over the years, I've seen you grow so much.
Yeah.
You know, and I know your story coming from Mexico City.
Yep.
You've had so much success. Tell us a little bit about this young Cesar.
Yeah.
And how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, definitely it's been a journey for sure. And I always tell people that really who I am now is where I came from and who I was, right? And so I'll give you a little bit about my backstory. Born in Mexico City, and I was born into just one parent, my mom. Never met my biological father to this day, don't even know his name. Have nothing, to relate to him whatsoever. And I grew up in a very poor environment. We didn't really have anything. As a matter of fact, we used to live in this, what I call a house. It was really a room of just 250 square feet.
Wow.
No running water, no electricity, no plumbing. There was nothing for us, there. Literally, we're on top of just dirt. There was not even a floor.
And this is in Mexico?
This is in Mexico, yeah. And it was my mom, my mom's mom, which I call mi mamá, my grandmother, and then my older brother and I. And it was really the four of us. And then it wasn't until 3 months after I turned 4 that my mom decided to take her leap of faith. And what I mean by that is that she decided to leave Mexico and migrate to the States to be able to provide a better life for us. And while that was good, it also became a pivotal moment for me. And the reason for that is because her leaving us, it was just my mom, my mamá, my grandma, my older brother, and I. And from that moment, while I was already doing stuff, I was really more forced to start working, right, at an early age. And so we used to do different things. We used to do taquitos, do cookies, things like that we can actually sell at the flea market. And that didn't work out that good, right? I mean, we're trying to just do whatever we can to make ends meet. And there was times that sometimes we didn't have enough money for food. And I always said that we had the Mexican specialty dish, which is a tortilla with a grain of salt, and we'll just have that. And to this day, I still love that. I mean, it's amazing. And that's all we had, though. And so having to work at an early age, doing all these different things. And I remember my grandmother, she was very, for education, she's like, you gotta go to school, at least do that. And I'm glad we were able to do that. Except right after school, we come home, and we needed to work. There was no other option. Like either do your homework, eat whatever there is, and then literally work all the way through sometimes midnight. At one point, we didn't have enough, and so my grandma decided to get a sewing machine for us. And so my older brother, myself, and my grandma, we all got our own sewing machine, and we started sewing clothing for dolls. And so if you want to, if you want a costume for Halloween, let me know. I can probably do something for you there. Nevertheless, we started sewing clothing to be able to make ends meet. And we'll get these like 50-gallon bags of just clothing. We'll take them on the bus for about an hour to the factory so that we can get paid, right? Luckily, we never were robbed or nothing happening in that sense. And it wasn't until my mom came back when I was 7. She had already gotten her immigration status here, so she was able to travel in and out of the country. And so she went to Mexico to visit us, right? And then from that, she came back to the States. When I was 10, she's like, hey, we're going to the States. And I'm like, yeah, I don't believe that because, I already went once. And the time that I went, you sent us back. So it's like, for what, right? Nevertheless, she did. We actually migrated to the States, and I came here illegally. And we had to cross the border through Tijuana and in California. And so we crossed the border, and it took us about 2 weeks to really go through that. It was definitely a difficult experience.
And what was happening during that 2 weeks of coming over?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I actually talk about it in my very first book. It's interesting how they call them the coyotes or the human smugglers, right? It's interesting how the people that's supposed to protect you are the people that are harming you, right? And so a couple of different things. The reason why it kind of lasted 2 weeks, one, there was heavy immigration, right? So obviously because we're coming here illegally, we're trying to make sure that we're not gonna get caught. And when we actually cross over, we're in this motel for about a week. And the people that were supposed to protect us, they were like, one, they were not feeding us. They were also raping some of the girls there. Like I saw a lot of different things happening. And I'm like, dude, these are the people that are supposed to protect you. Yeah, they're doing these things to other people, right? And part of that is, you don't give me money or, we want more money, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, right? Luckily, nothing happened to us, nothing negative. Yet, we were stuck for 2 weeks. And finally, when immigration wasn't as heavy, or there was not that much security, we were able to actually travel from this was in San Clemente, right before there's a checkpoint there between San Diego and San Clemente. So we're right before San Clemente, and we were able to then take the drive all the way down to Los Angeles, which is where I live now, right? And so that was when I was 10, and I came to the States, and didn't know the language, couldn't communicate with anybody. It was a difficult time for me to be in the school system, because again, for the first time in my life, you're dealing with so many diversities, right? So many ethnicities, and not being able to communicate, not having any friends, not having all that stuff. That was challenging. And so I remember one time telling my stepdad, who I see as my dad, I said, you know what, I don't belong here. How about you just send me back to Mexico?
And how old are you at this time?
I was 10.
10,
Yeah,
ready
10
to go
to
back.
11. Yeah, send me back. Just send me back. And I'm glad he didn't. That we wouldn't be having this conversation. Yet, I realized something in that moment. And oftentimes we go through these different things in life, and that is that when people are afraid of the unknown, people are afraid to be uncomfortable. People sometimes, because of circumstances, they don't take that chance or the opportunity, right? And so for me, at 10, 11, I'm like, you know what? I didn't feel like I fit in. Didn't know the language. I felt uncomfortable being here. I wanted to go back to what I was comfortable. I wanted to go back to being poor. I wanted to go back to working as a kid. I wanted to go back to my old life, because that's what I knew. Except it was that one thing that I needed to be uncomfortable and stay in this great nation and be able to make the best out of that. And I believe that that's a huge lesson in life, because oftentimes we as people, you don't want to step out of your comfort zone to grow.
Right.
Right. And so I'm glad that obviously they didn't send me back, and then you have to adjust, and then something happens. Now you have to surrender. Except I didn't surrender to give up. I surrendered to understand. I surrendered to say, okay, this is going to be my new norm. What can I do to make this the best, right? And so within 2 years, I learned the language, English, and I was able to communicate, and I was a schoolboy, and I was doing, getting good grades. And then around the age of 15, I had a girlfriend who we ended up getting pregnant, right? And I had my daughter at the age of 16. So literally, it had just been 6 years that I had come to the States, and I was a kid having a kid, right? And so that was another lesson by itself, And while that was challenging, I remember telling my daughter's mom that I will make a promise to her, and the promise was, I'm going to make sure that our daughter does not have to suffer the way that I suffered, that our daughter does not have to work the way I worked as a kid. I didn't want my daughter to grow up in that environment, right? And so I went to school. I was working full time, trying to provide for my daughter, and at the time, my daughter's mom. And that was challenging in itself. Yet I believe that all those different things and lessons that I went through, from the moment that I grew up, or I was born and growing up, really led to where I am now. I think the fact that I was working at an early age, I grew fast, right? I had to grow pretty fast, has helped me really see things from a different perspective.
When you were coming over trying to make it, saying you want more, was this a conscious decision? Were you aware, like, hey, I need to become more? Like, where did you get that?
I think it was. And this one thing that I don't understand to this date is that a lot of people that come from different countries, right? And I saw this growing up a lot, right? People that will come from different countries in middle school and high school, they just kind of fell into drugs or gangs and things like that, right? And I really don't understand that concept. I don't get it. You know, if you're coming from a different place, at least for me, and even now you see that a lot, where a lot of people come here and they're doing harm or they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and because of that, then you know they kind of create a bad name for us Hispanic people, right?
Right.
Let me make the best out of that, right? Let me look at the opportunities. What can I do from that? And so I never got involved with any of that stuff. Because again, there was no interest. Like, you know, maybe again, because I grew up poor and I had to really work my ass off to do something, you get me? And I'm not gonna fall into something negative. I'm not saying I was perfect. I went through a lot of things in my life. I had some, you know, challenging times growing up as, as a teenager in my early 20s. I had a lot of challenges, except again, I was looking to see how can I get better, you know? What is the next thing for me, right? And I grew up with a anger management. You know, I was very angry as a kid, I guess, and growing up, and so that created some consequences for me, big time. Except I always wanted more, right? And I think it's again because of how I grew up.
You mentioned having some anger issues growing up. You know, lots going on in your life. Where do you think that stems from? And then how were you able to overcome that, right? Because I think it's, man, sometimes that anger it seems normal, right?
Yeah.
It's like a normal to get upset about things, get aggressive, and get angry. What was manifested in your life that you knew that was an issue? And then how were you able to overcome that?
Yeah, you know what? Everybody told me, like my mom and my friends and even my daughter growing up. I just had you know anger issues, I guess. I don't know. You know, my older brother thinks that it was because we didn't have a dad, you know, growing up, right? We didn't have that father figure. We didn't have that in our lives to be able to help us and shape you in a different way, right? So you didn't really, you know, and whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. Yet I didn't have that, right? And so it could be, part of that could be that. I think through different lessons in life, I learned and I grew out of it, right? And I'll be honest with you, it wasn't probably into my I would say maybe early 30s that I was kind of better, maybe even my mid 30s, that I kind of let that go, right? In my early 20s, I had a confrontation with my daughter's mom, you know, where we got into a physical fight, and my anger, that led me to first time being incarcerated for a couple of days because of that, right? And luckily, my daughter's mom ended up dropping the charges, so I was only in jail for 5 days or 6 days, whatever that might have been. Obviously, that ended the relationship after that, right? I'm not proud of what I did, and I learned from that. And I realized that this is not me. I cannot do that. I mean, now I'm really good friends with her. We get on really good, except again, this is not me. You get me?
Right.
And so I think it was lessons like that, you know, and then, just seeing the reaction from other people that were close to me, like whether it's my mom or my daughter, knowing that, you know, man, he's always, you know, angry, and, you know, we got to be cautious with him, you know, things like that. And so I think it was more being a student of life, right, and learning through the different experiences helped me overcome a lot of that stuff, to be honest with you. And now, as I'm getting older, and when I got involved with, you know, self-development and business development and working on your mind, it has changed a lot of those things for me too. And I think a lot of it has to do with the programs, the things that you watch. I mean, you know, you watch movies or you watch TV, and there's a lot of violence, and so that all of that, you know.
Right. It's programming happening all around you.
Yeah, and again, even the fact that, you know, again, growing up poor and not having those things, and it's not an excuse. It's just, again, especially in Mexico, right? You know, a lot of times you hear this, that the machismo, right? You know,
right.
And so men are like that, right? And so you're already, even before you're born, you're already classified as that,
right?
You know,
and then it's almost like you get a pass for it, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's okay, everybody else is doing it,
right?
It makes it all right.
Yeah. So for me, I think it was that. It's just, you know, life that gave me the lessons, and then also working on your mind. Working on your mind and seeing things from a different perspective has helped me overcome that for sure.
And you talk about working on the mind, personal development. I know early on in my career, so many people had told me it's about the mindset. And I didn't even know what that meant, right? I'm thinking, mindset, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't reading a lot at the time, and but I was curious, right? What is this mindset thing? And I think it took me several years to even understand that. So when you say working on the mind, how did you get from, you're incarcerated, anger issues, and you're looking now, you look great, sharp, great presentation on stage, you're doing so many things now. How did you develop that mindset? What was your, how did you discover that you needed to do that? And then what did you do to work on the mindset?
Yeah, I think it was by accident, to be honest with you. I started in 2005, 2006. I got involved with real estate, right? And so I got a couple of properties in LA. Didn't get anybody, didn't get a mentor. I just did it on my own. And because of that, I lost all the properties. Foreclosed on a few of them. 10 years later, I'm like, I went through the whole bad credit for 10 years and kind of that stuff, right? And so when that happened, I'm like, I'm out. I'm just gonna focus 100% in working, going to school and that stuff, right? And then in 2013, I was watching HGTV channel or something like that, where they flip properties, right? And one of them, they were saying, hey, we're gonna be coming to Los Angeles. If you want to learn more about real estate, I'm like, well, I've already been in real estate once, and it wasn't really, good experience because I lost it all, and just 10 years of bad experience and blah blah blah, right? And so I ended up buying. It was a free event. It was a preview. It was a 2-hour or 3-hour event. So I went to that in 2013. Obviously, I went there. I'm like, all right. They were selling a upgrade to a 3-day workshop for like, I don't know, $5,000 or something like that. I'm like, all right, I'll buy that. At that time, it was my the girl that I was dating. We bought it together. We went to that, and then from there, we bought their mastermind for like, I don't know, $45,000, right? And so I got reintroduced to real estate, and I said, well, I gotta make it work. At this time, I was working full time, and I was trying to start my real estate business. And it definitely took off. I started doing real estate investing, and through that, and going to those seminars that were specific to real estate, I was meeting a lot of different people, and obviously through that, you see the different people, the different levels, and you kind of learn from them, right? And then it was in LA in 2017, November 2017, where Tony Robbins and a bunch of other people were going to be there. It was the Real Estate Wealth Expo. And I said, well, I want to see Tony Robbins, he's the mind, he talks about positivity and things like that. And I really want to see all the other speakers because it's a Real Estate Wealth Expo. There was probably about 15,000 people there.
I think I went to the same thing in Austin.
Did you? Okay, got you. And so I wanted to, network with people. I mean, I knew at that point I was realizing you got to network, start changing, your environment and the people you hang around with, right? And then I met this guy there, a very funny hypnosis show, right? I'm like, man, this guy is good, right? And he said, he's like, if you like what you saw, come back tomorrow morning, because I'm gonna teach you how to use hypnosis in your business, okay? And I said, all right, well, I already paid for this, so he's gonna be there. And sure enough, he blew my mind away, and it was Marshall Silver, and then he offered Turning Point, and something different that I have never had done. So I bought Turning Point. I went to Turning Point, and I'm like, dude, I don't know, he either hypnotized me or something. I need to work with this guy. And at that time, I bought his mastermind. Back then, it was $50,000, and so I bought his mastermind. And it was really then when I got introduced to seeing things from a different perspective. While he teaches business, he was also teaching a lot of the mindset, right? And that's how my journey started. And then from there, I started seeing things from a different perspective. I decided that, what, I'm gonna get rid of my cable TV or whatever. I'm not gonna watch any of that. And so I kind of stopped watching TV. I started journaling. I didn't listen to music. I started listening to podcasts. So I started taking some of the steps to kind of get rid of some of the negative programs that we go through, and really did a 360 on that. And I focused a lot on that. And so I started coming to his events. Almost every other event, I will come to his events, his Turning Points. And then where I met you at the next level and all that stuff, then I went to that, and that blew my mind too, because I was being challenged physically, mentally, emotionally, and there was a lot of things that I worked through that. And then through another one of his events, like the one we did this week, I bought NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, program that somebody was selling, and then through that I learned more, and then I started working on my own, mind. I realized going through all of that and making those changes, has allowed me to see things from a different perspective. And also, when you talk about, being angry all the time, like I don't really get angry anymore. To me, that's, I've overcame that. I do believe it's because I started working on my mind. I started seeing things from a different perspective. There's something that comes to us free when we are born, right? And that's that one thing between our ears, and that's our mind. We don't really take too much care of it, and we don't really pay attention to it, right? And the mind can make it or break it for you, right? It reminds me of an African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that can do you no harm, right? And so when you start seeing it from that perspective, it's like it doesn't matter who's, essentially it doesn't really matter who's in politics, who's the president, or what society is doing. You control what you can control. And when you can start seeing it from that perspective, that if you can control the mind, what's inside, there's nothing else that can harm you outside, because you know how to maneuver around that, right? And so, I kind of, working through that and seeing that, I'm like, I got to start making different changes. And so in my first book, I talked about really that journey of, going through that, and I talk about all of the different things that I did myself to start changing the perspective. Started reading more. I started doing stuff. That's how my book started, and then my podcast. It was just, things just came in, and they were, falling into place.
You've been to all these events. You talk about, you went to this one event, it was $40,000 that you bought a mastermind. You bought another mastermind, $50,000, right? And we're talking about the mindset. A lot of people would see that and think, why would you spend so much money on that? You can learn this for free over here. You can get on the internet and learn that. Why do you invest so much in these programs? What have they done for you? And why would somebody, invest like that in themselves?
Yeah, I believe that the best investment you can do is in yourself, right? And think about it. I mean, sometimes, people rather buy an iPhone for $1,400 or $1,500, the newest iPhone, instead of buying a 3-day event for $1,000 that can probably change your life, right? Again, I have a master's. My master's, if I look at my education, and I'm a firm believer of education, except now that I see it differently. Before it's like, I gotta go to school. That's what, people tell you. Even my grandma, I mean, even growing up, it's like, you gotta go to school, get a good job, get a good education, get a good job, so you can have a lot of money coming in, a good paying job, right? And just do that until you retire. And that was the journey that I was following until, again, until I started real estate, and then until I got into some of these other events. And I realized that I'm all for education, except now I believe that I'm all for the non-traditional education, the events. My master's was probably about $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. I'm still paying the student loan to this day, right? Because the interest and all that stuff, I'm still paying for that. And oftentimes what happens is you go to, and I'm not knocking it out by no means, because I have a master's. It helped me in my career for sure to grow in corporate America, not to the speed and the level that I wanted to. That's the first. The second thing is that while you go to school and you get your education, oftentimes you might get a degree in finance, or you might get a degree in business administration, whatever degree it is, and you're working in a different field. You're not even utilizing that, right? And so I see it as it's the same thing as getting educated. It's like going to school. The difference is that this probably might be faster. You're working on yourself, which is the best investment you can give yourself. While you can go to YouTube University and get all of the knowledge, or how to flip a property or do that, it's gonna take you way longer, right? And I believe that we're here today and we are gone tomorrow. And you gotta remember, tick tock. And I'm not referring on the application, TikTok. That is the clock, or the sound of the clock, and that's your clock. That is going through fast, right? And so if you're letting that clock just go on and you're not doing anything, again, you can go to school for 4, 5, 6 years and hope that you get a good job, or you can go to YouTube University and try to learn for free, except the time is going by so fast. And so I believe that rather than doing that, why don't you invest in yourself so you can get there faster, you know? So
I heard somebody refer to it as the instead of the S&P 500, the SME 500.
yeah,
right? You're investing in yourself.
Yeah.
So that's the best investment that you can make.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So your book, You Can Overcome Anything, which is actually a series, right?
Yep.
You have, I think, 8 books. Is that correct?
No, actually, I have 12 books.
12 books, okay.
12 books on that. Yeah.
And they're all under the same title.
Yep, you can overcome anything. So it's funny how that came about. My very first book, and it's not part of the series, but my very first book is called You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. And I also have that in Spanish. And it was my very first book. It is my life story. And it tells you, from the minute that I was born all the way to, when I finished the book, right? And the reason why I call it Even When the World Says No is because I feel that society, the world was telling me, no, you're not gonna make it. No, you're poor. You had a kid at an early age, you're not gonna make it. You went to jail, you're not gonna make it, right? Everybody was telling me no, and I wanted to prove to myself more than anything, and everybody else that I'm gonna make it, right? Because oftentimes that happens to us in life. We're always are hearing this that you're not gonna make it. You're getting all these negative no's, right? And so you gotta be able to say to yourself, like, I can actually do it.
Right.
And so I did that first book, and when I did that first book, that opened up opportunities for me. People wanted to know more about me, and they invited me to a book series of How to Be Authentic, Volume 5. And so I joined that. They loved that. And then I said, what about if I do the same and I create a book series called You Can Overcome Anything with different subtitles, where now I can also get people from all backgrounds and talk about their story. And the idea is threefold. Number one, we want to be able to motivate, we want to be able to empower, and we want to be able to inspire people through the stories, right? And my faith is that if somebody picks up any of my books, that there's a paragraph, a chapter, a word or a phrase that's going to resonate with them positively and is going to impact their life in a good way. Because I believe that now, where I didn't see it before, it was more about me, how can I do this and do that?
Right.
It's like, I recognize now that how can you impact other people? Because that's where the reward is. Yeah.
So you come over from Mexico, right? You have a child in the teenage years. You get into real estate, that falls apart.
Yep.
And I even know you were mugged at one point.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have all these things happen to you,
Yeah, that's right.
right? But you seem to bounce back with such resilience.
Yeah.
What is your key to just bounce back, keep going, and every time I see you, you're better than ever?
Yeah.
What's the key to that? Because so many people, they get knocked down, and you see eventually some people give up.
Yeah.
What does one need to overcome, right? To overcome anything, as
Yeah.
you say.
For me, I guess the biggest thing is, one, is I work so much on my mind now that I don't let things get to me that easy. And I realize that we are here today and we are gone tomorrow, right? And so I believe that the fact that we're here right now, right? The fact that we're able to have this conversation, whether people believe in God or the universe, whatever that might be, there's a bigger purpose for us, right? And the fact that we're still here breathing means that we have to deliver a message. And so when I think of that, is, like when I got smuggled, I mean, it was 2 people. They could have probably stabbed me, killed me, whatever, except it didn't happen, right? And so that means that there's something bigger. There's a lesson to be learned from that, right? And looking back in life right now, everything that has happened to me, I realize that it is not something negative. I got to look at what were the lessons. What is the educational experience that I had to extract from that event, right? One of my best relationships advice that I can give people is, do not cheat on your future with your past.
Ooh.
People tend to live in the past, and unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. All we can do is learn from that and figure out, okay, what were the lessons? What can I extract from here? And how can I make a different decision moving forward, right? And I think part of that is having that mindset, having that mentality that, whether it was good or bad, at the end of the day, something's gonna come out of that, right? And so if I didn't have that mindset, I could have probably, fall into depression, into drugs. And I'm not saying that it's easy. I mean, I get my moments too. We all have them. Except I think it's much easier for me to bounce back and say, you know what, I gotta keep moving forward. And part of that is because, again, I feel like there's a bigger purpose for me. And two, believe it or not, I believe that my daughter, my grandkid, they're watching, right? And I don't want to let them down either. So you got to understand what is that also that your why or your purpose for you.
Right. And there's a lot of youngsters coming over from, Mexico, where you're from, and a lot of other countries are coming to the United States right now. We're seeing a lot of immigration. And there is an opportunity for someone to turn to drugs, or to turn to gangs, or not have the same opportunities that you did, right? You were just, like you said, you're just sometimes in the right place at the right time, or the mindset was just in the right place. What's your advice to some of these young kids, and maybe not even young kids, just everybody else? What's your advice to anybody for the opportunity that they have being here in the United States?
Yeah, don't waste it. And it's funny because we have seen this in the last couple of years. I have a lot of friends from Venezuela, a lot of friends from Colombia, Mexico, and you've seen the last couple of years a lot of people coming from Venezuela, Colombia, and the things that are happening. I don't agree with any of those things. Like a lot of things that are happening right now, where they literally come here and they feel like they have some sort of entitlement, right? They're like, I'm here now. Hey, take care of me.
Right.
And I'm like, no, dude. Like, get to work. Or like, I've even seen some stories where like people are like, yeah, they want to give me a job in construction. I was a doctor in my country. Yeah, that was in your country.
Yeah.
You got to start from somewhere.
Right.
And my advice is, do not let, again, it goes back to that. Do not let the fear of the unknown, or do not be afraid to take 3 steps back so that you can take 4 forward.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to say, well, I was this there, I want to start here.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Like my advice is if you have to start from the bottom to work yourself to the top, do that.
Yeah.
I tell people that you can lose your house, you can lose your significant other, you can lose just about anything, except if you're alive, then you have so much to give and to get, right? The minute you lose your life, your health, it's game over, right? And so I don't agree with people that come here and they feel like, I'm entitled to X, Y, and Z, to a better job, to have this, to have that, or for somebody to support me. No, like you gotta do your work. So you have that group of people. The second group of people that I feel that my advice is that the drugs is not an answer. Falling into gangs is not an answer. I've talked to so many people. I've coached people that have gone through some challenging times. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, gang related, and luckily they realized that was not the path. A lot of people want to take the path with less resistance, right? Yet that's not the answer. And so my advice is, where do you want to go in life? If you were to leave this world today, what is that thing you want to leave behind? What is that legacy? How do you want people to remember you? Do you want to be remembered by being this person that, all they did was take advantage of other people or were bad people? Or do you want to remember by somebody that actually impacted life?
Right.
And so I think we got to ask ourselves those questions,
And going back to you can overcome anything, right? I think there's a lot of fear in the world today. It's just a lot of unknowns, like you said, a lot of knowns that are fearful. What's your advice to anybody who's looking to overcome this? They might have a family. They might be concerned about their job. They might be concerned about where their future is going. What's your advice to them to continue to move forward?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is nothing is secure in this life, right? When I worked at corporate America, I remember seeing a couple of employees that had been there for like 18, 20 years, right? And they spent all this time in that company, and then the company said, you're out of a job now, right? And you have people that dedicated this year, right? And so, if you're banking on having a job forever, it's not gonna work. So my biggest thing is, I think it was Les Brown. He said, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy, right? And so here's the example on that. When I think of that, it is easy for me to eat at 10 p.m. the fries and the pizza and the milkshake. It is easy for me to come home from work because I'm tired and just sit on the couch and watch TV.
Right.
It is easy for me to stay in bed until 10, 11 a.m., right? Yet your life will be hard because now you're gonna have bad health, you're not working on your mind, you're gonna be obese. You know, there's so many different things that come with that. It's gonna be hard. It is hard to eat your vegetables. It is hard to get up early in the morning and go for a walk or a run. It is hard for you to look at your mirror, at the mirror, and say, "Hey, Cesar, I love you. I appreciate you. You're the best thing that could happen to this world." It is hard to do that. It is hard to come home after 12 hours, which is that happened to me. 12 hours from working, and then working on your dream or on your business or on your real estate. Yet when you do that, your life will be easy, right? And so when you start thinking about that, my best advice is, no matter what is going on, work on yourself. Work on whatever you can to become better, be 1% better. Because again, you never know what's going to happen. You never know if you're going to get laid off. You never know if you're not working on your health, you some sort of bad news. So my advice is, you got to keep moving forward. You got to keep working on yourself. Again, work on things that you want to do in your life.
And you mentioned that it's hard to get in the mirror and say, "Cesar, I love you," right? So many, including myself, right? So many of us, we try to get away from ourselves. What do you think that is? Why are we trying to separate from who we really are, and why would it be so difficult to tell ourselves that we love ourselves? I think there's so much pressure to, not to be selfish, right?
Yeah.
To give to others, which is a wonderful thing, but also self-love. What's the importance in that?
Yeah, so I didn't learn that until like probably my late 30s, to be honest with you. And again, it was through this journey of self-discovery and self-development and working on myself. It was really hard for me to get on the mirror and start saying and giving myself grace. We as people are always looking or seeking validation outside, yet we're not getting that from ourselves. And so if you're contingent on that and you're looking for that validation from somebody else, guess what? When you're an entrepreneur and you're by yourself, or it doesn't matter, whatever that might be, or your significant other leaves you, right? That component of somebody validating you is not there. So what happens? You fall into depression. You fall into different negative habits, right? And so I believe that you have to give yourself grace, because at the end of the day, think about it. Even if you're in a very healthy relationship, right? When you go to sleep, you might be sleeping on the same bed, but you're sleeping with your own dreams. There's nobody else, right? And so I think it's important for us to not just seek validation outside. We got to give that to ourselves. If anything, it's like that, when you're flying, right? They tell you in an event that the cabin pressure, goes low, whatever, put the mask on first, then help somebody else.
Right.
You got to take care of yourself first before you can take care of anybody else, right? And so I think that's actually a good exercise to do, to start giving yourself grace. Again, for me, when I started doing it, it was very hard. And now I can actually look at the mirror and give myself grace. Because at the end of the day, it's like, you love you. Nobody's going to love you better than anybody else, And to be honest with you, the only person you're competing with is yourself too.
Right.
Right. And so I think that's critical. We have to be able to learn how to do that and practice that. And while it's not easy, it is also not difficult, except it's something you got to do. Right now with social media, we put on this fake face that, or fake news, right?
Yeah.
Of who you want people to see who you are. When in reality, you're not that person.
Right.
And, behind the scenes, you're drowning, or you're going through some challenges, or whatever that might be. When I talked about getting smuggled, I posted that, and if I don't remember what I posted, I said, well, I also want to put the good things in my life. I want to be authentic. I'm going to put the things that are going on, because in reality, that's what took place. And I think that I even put a picture where I was crying, because it happens. That is being authentic. If you're gonna be in social media, be who you are.
Right.
Regardless. Right. And so, it's I think more than anything, like if you're expecting that edification, it has to come from you. Like get on the mirror every morning and talk to yourself. Because that's going to be the best conversation you're going to have.
Right. You're doing so much, Cesar. You're speaking, you're writing books. What's your gift to the world? What do you here on this earth to do, and what's your gift to the world?
I think when I decided to become an entrepreneur, I said there's something bigger and better for me, right? There's a different purpose for me. And again, I kind of go back to, when I was living in Mexico, growing up, and I'm like, I gotta be able to do more, right? And for me, I call it my highest intention. My highest intention is to be able to motivate, to be able to empower, to be able to inspire other people through the things that I'm doing. I do want to be able to kind of going back to what I mentioned to you earlier, like if you were to die today, how do you want people to remember you? And I want to be remembered by someone that actually did something to impact other people's lives. Jim Rohn was talking about the average 5, right? And the average 5 are the people that you hang around the most is who you're going to become. And I agree with that, except I want to take it one step further.
Okay.
I believe that the average 5 in my book should be consisted of 3 different people or 3 different categories or groups of people. The first one is a mentor, someone that you look up to, that they genuinely want to help you, right? They want to see you succeed, right? So you're seeking for someone to help you get to that next level, right? And sometimes that could be, a pay mentor. It could be your parents. It could be someone that's motivating you, right? And they're helping you with that. The second group of people should be people like you and I, that while we might not be in the same business, and even if we were in the same business, we're not competing with each other. We're actually edifying each other. We're doing joint ventures. We're working together. Collaborating, right? Instead of competing, because there's a lot of that, right? And be able to do that, and then you're helping each other grow. And then the last one is the last group of people are people that are below you, right? And not because they're lesser than you, except you or them at one point.
That's right.
And they're trying to get to your level. This is where I think is critical. Now this is your opportunity to reach down and lift them up to where you are now. Help them through that journey, right? And so when I think of that, for me, is that, through my books, the fact the book series has been a bestseller in Canada, Mexico, Australia, and the U.S. Somebody is getting impacted, by reading those stories, by getting my book. I'm helping them. I'm helping them lift them up, right? When I kind of started doing some of my first books, people were like, man, you've impacted me so much. Now you've inspired me to write a book, to start doing something with my life. That's what I want, And so it gives you the ability to do that. I want to be remembered by that person, somehow, that I was able to impact not just my life, but the life of other people.
Right. And so if someone wants to get a hold of you and want to find you online, how can they do that?
Best way to find me, you can go to my website, www.cesarespino.com, or you can just Google me and you can find all my social media and all that stuff too.
And what does the R stand for?
Roman.
Roman.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's it's a long story in that one too, but it's essentially now my middle name. But I was not born with that. My birth name is actually Cesar Espino Martinez.
Okay.
But when I came to the States, they don't really recognize 2 last names. And so I got rid of the Martinez, and it was just Cesar Espino. And so I'm going to give you the quick version because it's a long story. And then when I finally, my dad, who I see is my stepdad, but I see him as my dad, I think I was 15 or 16. He legally adopted me. And he's Roman.
Beautiful.
And so then I lost the Espino, and I was Cesar Roman. And then and so he adopted me so that I can actually get my papers. I didn't get my papers until like almost 16, 17, And then I got my green card and all that stuff. When I became a U.S. citizen, when somebody wants to become a U.S. citizen, you can change your name to whatever you want.
Oh wow.
And so at that time I said, you know what, I'm Espino. I'm not Roman, because nothing against him. I love my dad dearly, except I'm not Roman. I'm Espino. Yet what I did, I said, you know what, to honor him for what he's done for me and for my mom, is I'm going to go back to Espino, who I am. That's my last name. Yet I'm going to leave Roman as my middle name to honor him, and so that's why I left it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, here's to our mentors, our fathers, and great friendships.
Yeah, definitely,
It's
man.
been
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me, man. I'm so glad and happy to have this conversation, and man, I'm grateful.
We'll look forward to many more.
Yes, for sure.
Cesar, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, brother.